Never Stop Reading.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, my name is Veronika Darius from Verlag, and I'm happy to welcome you here at Never Stop Reading at the bookstore to the book launch of the first issue of our new magazine GTA Papers. The title of GTA Papers #1 is Architecture Machine. The subject, the editors, Laurent Stalder and Moritz Gleich, did research for quite a while already, and they will talk about that later. As guests for the talk about the new publication, we are happy to welcome Sarah Graham and Marc Angélil from AGPS Architecture in Los Angeles and Zurich, and Karin from Berlin and Zurich. And Laurent, Karin, and Marc are professors at the ETH here in Zurich. Before we start, I would like to thank Nora Schwien, our host, and her team, our hosts at the Never Stop Reading bookstore, for giving us the opportunity to present one of our new releases here in this new place, quite new place. I wish all of us an amazing and inspiring evening, and now I hand the microphone over to Laurent.
Okay, I will try without microphone. Is that okay? Good. And there are some seats here in front, so please feel free. I will this evening first introduce into the object, then speak about the title, then hand over to Moritz, who is the co-editor, who will speak about the content, finally. And Karin, who was very much involved in the design, who will speak about the form, one could say. After that, Marc asked us to prepare questions. So there will be a question-answer with Sarah and Marc. Thank you for being here. So for the object, as Veronika quickly said, it's a new format. It's not a book, it's not a journal, but it's a magazine. And I think this is important. It's lighter than a book, and it's heavier as a journal.
It is heavier, yes.
And this comes from one central problem I had with scholarship, is that often texts cannot be found by non-scholars, as they are hidden into a Kongressakte, in a heavy Kongressakte, which you cannot find neither on internet nor in a database. And the second problem is a scholar problem. Actually, a scholar often submit essay, and in the etymological signification of essay is something, an approach, an attempt. And so we decided to choose a format where you could find a singular piece, and in which you can also publish an essay in the form that after 1 year or 2 years, somehow it's replaced by a better or a more thoughtful next issue. So the GTA Papers should be the concentration of a certain knowledge at a certain time. It should be a format with a transient character, also in its form. To make that this was possible, we collaborated with many persons. First of all, with the Verlag, with Veronika Darius, Philippe Mouton, and Ulrike Steiner and Ulla Bein, who helped us to make this happen, but also with Andreas Übele and Karin Sandert, who helped us to give it the right shape. And finally, I would also like to thank Moritz for his incredible work on this piece. Now to the title, Architectural Machine. Maybe some of you know what we have been trying to do in the last years, somehow to bring technology and architecture again together. Because we are convinced that technology is not an isolated domain with an independent logic, but we are also convinced somehow that cultural history for a long time has not been concerned with technology. And to bridge this gap was an endeavor that we have been trying to overcome in the last, I would say, almost 10 years. First, when we attacked the issues through elements, when we worked on the threshold, on a very basic element, which became the Schwellenatlas. When we then worked on Switzerland as a technological pastoral, so trying on a larger scale somehow to approach this topic. And now, as we began to work with this metaphor of the machine as a series of claims from the technical domain have been introduced, I would say, in the last 150 years into architecture, like efficiency. Why should architecture be efficient, for instance? Why should it be operable? Why should it perform? Why do we ask somehow that the building has to save energy? Where is the origin of these thoughts? And this we tried to do with our architectural machine, but I handle now over to Moritz.
Thank you very much. Before giving a very brief presentation or sample of the content of the first issue of the GTA papers, I want to quickly talk about the structure of the publication, because although we conceived the papers as a container or as a platform for potentially very different forms of research, we thought it would be nice to have a few fixed categories, or Rubriken, as you would say in German. So apart from an introduction and a series of full-length essays, now and in the future you can expect to find in the papers also a short format which we called Miscellanea, and which is scattered throughout the journal, and which is supposed to address more contemporary questions of the respective topic, and which you will recognize by having a slightly different typo. And then you can also expect to find an image spread, which for now will come from the holdings of the GTR archive, and which is supposed to kind of visually probe the respective topic. And for this issue, we're very happy to have Miscellanea by Tobias Erb, Jacqueline Maurer and Kaspar Scherer, and to have an image spread which was compiled and commented by Dani Weiss. And now, in talking about the content of the particular issue which we are presenting today, the architecture machine, I thought it would be good maybe to start with a few things that you might expect to be in there, but which are in fact not. So, for example, there is no or almost no Corbusier in this issue. This is because we wanted to show that there's much more to the topic than the infamous Machina Habitée. There is almost no machine aesthetic in the sense of buildings or architectural elements looking like a machine or trying to look like a machine. This is because we think that the discussion has stopped at this level much too often. And then, for example, there's almost no computers in this issue. And this is because we really wanted to give the topic historical depth, and historians simply seem to feel less comfortable working about things which are less than a generation old. So, but even if there's no Corbusier, no machine aesthetic, no computers, there's a lot of other machines, I can tell you. And while in the issue we put those machines in a chronological order, which is ranging from the mid-18th century up to the 1970s. For today, I try to give you a sample by going from very concrete machines to rather abstract ones or theoretical ones. So, in the issue, you can find very concrete machines which kind of stand for themselves and which are almost like antagonists to the built object or to the architect. So an example for this would be Sabine von Fischer's text on the strange device of the tapping machine, or in German the Hammerwerk, which was developed to test soundproofing of architecture in the 1920s. Then in the issue you can find service machines, or in German Haustechnische Maschinen, which have invaded architecture since the 19th century to the point where whole buildings sometimes seem to achieve machine-like quality. Examples for this would be Carlotta Davo's text on sound or telephone conduits, or Susanne Jani's text on post offices. And then as a third category, obviously many texts would fit in multiple categories. You have something that could be called conceptual machines, where machines or mechanisms become conceptual models for architectural problems, and that's important, vice versa. An example for this would be Martin Bressani's text on Viollet-le-Duc's machinic and organic thinking and references. And then I've got two more. One would be called problematic machines, maybe. That is, machines or machine concepts that have scrutinized or troubled architecture and its historiography in the past. An example is maybe John Harwood's text on wires, which shows that wires not only trouble us as users of technical objects, but also trouble art and architecture historians. And then a last category I want to point out is something that could be called theoretical machines. And there's a slight shift there, because this is a category where the authors themselves are using theoretical machine concepts to analyze questions of architectural history. So, for example, Reinhard Martin in this issue is writing on early US colleges, so from the 18th century, as corporate persons, that's what they are, legally corporate persons, and as social machines in a Mumfordian and Deleuzian sense. So this is kind of a sample of the scope that you will find, a sample of the machines that you can find in this issue. And with this, I hand over the word to Karin Sander, who played a crucial role, I could say, in the design of the format, and who will say some words on that.
Thank you very much. Well, we started off thinking, if you read this kind of, or when you set up such a magazine, you want to be sure you can look at it for the next 100 copies. So it should be a system that you like to look at, which is which each page is an experience that comes from images, so that you experience that you can look at each page and read it for a couple of minutes, and you don't have to shut your eyes because you can't handle the way of layout. And scientific texts have to do that effort to look nice and to combine footnotes, which you mostly don't like, or put them secretly at the end mostly, and the images you just put in between. So our idea was to make it function that as soon as you need to refer to a footnote, it comes right away. So, for example, the page looks like this, and here's the footnote, and you find the footnote right. You don't have to look to the end of the text, so it comes right away. And also the images are becoming part of the text. You don't have big edges around. You have images that really fit and that are handled exactly the same way as the text. So it should be a play together between text from information, and so you see here the text has just the edge around as the distance between the lines. So it is nice for the eye, and it doesn't disturb the page with a nice typeface. So we have the footnotes with the 8-point letters. We have the text in 16 points, so big, so you don't need glasses. And then we have a kind of miscellaneous texts which are just put in between. They are really big, so you see there's something else coming.
The less important.
That's really important, that you really understand while reading, that you have fun reading, and that it is given to you, that this booklet transfers or gives you the idea we would like you to read these texts. They are not just for the ones who wrote them, they are also very nicely for them to read them. So the most difficult one was the cover, because the cover is the most important. This is where you grab it on the book. There are so many concurrents, and how can we do it that people really like to grab it and own it? So we started to do drawings, and we would have liked to have a drawing, an image on the cover that would lead into the content of the inside. But the drawing didn't work, and then we came to the conclusion: why not just name what's inside, in questions, in notes, and so on. So here is the content, very short, that fits to all the text inside, and this barcode is the individual real reference to this one, and the next barcode will be different. Can you remember? No, but it will be part of the image of this book. And the next text might be longer, shorter, but it will always be recognizable. And then the next one will also have a different color. So you have the next 100 GTA papers coming out, each in a slightly different color. You can be curious. Thank you.
Can I add two things?
Yeah.
The one, it's 50 years, and it goes from white to black.
Yes.
And so then it's finished. That's the first thing.
Exactly.
And the second is we also wanted to have a format which you can take with you
easily.
Yeah. This was a key. So it's not a heavy product, but it's a light product you can put also in your luggage or handbag. Sorry.
Yeah. And there were a little argument. Oh, why it will get dirty? We made it that you can clean it. It's washable. So, yeah. And so we have lots of texts. It has lots of pages, but it's still quite thin because we took 90-gram paper inside. So that's great.
I love it.
Wonderful.
Super.
So let's begin. Actually, Sarah, have you ever thought of architecture as a machine?
Of course. I'm a student of Corbusier. Given. That's easy. The answer is yes.
But for your own work, without the reference somehow to the bull eye or to the ramp or to the
I think so.
prefabrication?
No, I think so really, because I'm also obsessed with the fact that buildings need to function. So there's not a distance to travel to get to that definition. For me, it's comfortable, it's familiar, it's home, it's a starting point.
But then, so when I said that we left him out, that was obviously a bit provocative. So he's in the introduction, Corbusier. But one thing we actually do wanted to contest is this normative reading of the Machine Habitée. So when a lot of people, when they speak of the Machine Habitée, for them it's a negative reference because they think of an architecture which controls you, and this is something we wanted to contest in a way, saying firsthand it's a way of thinking about the productiveness, about the performativeness, about the operativity of architecture, and then it's open like any other technical object. But would you agree on this? Or when you said yes, you have thought of architecture as a machine, would you say it's that open? Would you say it's rather on the positive, affirmative side, on the negative side? Can you judge it in that way at all?
Personally, it's open and it's affirmative. So there is no argument for me. And as a reader, and because I think I can safely say we know much more about the magazine after listening to the three of you than we did a week ago, certainly. And how can I say? We're on your team. We're easy readers. We're there.
Well, we are readers.
We are readers.
We read a lot because we are seldom together. Okay, so we never stop reading, basically. but in this case, we had a funny problem because he called us 5 years ago. We were in
5 days ago.
5 days ago. 50 years ago. We were in Karin Sander's basement. And we got your phone call and you said, could you please say something about GTA Papers? And then, I was very embarrassed because I hadn't seen it yet. Okay? And I haven't read it yet. And, it's extremely difficult to talk about something that you haven't read. So we asked Laurent to send us a PDF. Okay.
And with that,
so our first encounter with this journal was through the machine.
and
And now comes then the problem started.
yes, it was the machine, because we received from Laurent a file that was 756 megabytes, representing 366 pages. So after we said, what is he thinking?
Why? How can we read 366 pages in 5 days?
So we thought we needed to develop a strategy of approaching this, or strategies. So the first thing we did is we thought of Professor Pierre Bayard, who's a French professor of literature, who wrote an amazing book called How to Talk About Books You Haven't Read.
So this was the beginning, and this is a book that you should not read. I mean, this is his recommendation. Please talk about this book, but don't read it. So this is what we did, and started to develop a strategy of how to deal with these thousands and thousands of megabytes of information that were landing in Karin Sander's basement.
So after...
But it took some while. It took some time.
But after not having read his book, but thinking it may be useful, I thought, all right, what's another strategy? My second strategy was I was going to call Karin and say, tell us about it. Which you just did, which was lovely. But she didn't answer the phone because she was busy.
So the machine, somehow the machine didn't work.
And then we thought in the 1 hour and 3 minutes that it took to download this file, we thought we should read another book.
Yes.
And so we did, and we read two books.
So I was reading a fantastic book, Die 7. Sprachfunktion. It's a novel about Roland Barthes' death. But there is a conspiracy theory suggesting that he was killed after a meeting with Mitterrand in Paris, and Foucault gets entangled in the apparatus of disciplinary measures.
So it fit.
So I was working on that. Sarah was working on Herzog-Dümmerung.
I was reading the latest volume, as far as I know, of Herzog-Dümmerung, and we enjoyed these books very much.
So because we never stopped reading. So finally the PDF arrived.
The PDF arrived, and there was a problem with the machine in the human interface, because the reason it was 756 megabytes and 366 pages is that the human that sent the PDF file sent it twice. So everything was doubled.
We got everything doubled.
So the good news is that it was only half as
only
much.
half as much.
Sure, one for you and one for you.
Exactly. So we split it in half. There was a logic to it.
But we liked that the human and the machine weren't really working very well, because that's also part of the whole machine story, I think.
So, but since we had it as a PDF and not as a hard copy, because we got the hard copy from you only on Monday, and then on Tuesday it arrived by post, so now we have five copies. So at least, but we haven't touched them, okay? Because we work only with the PDF. We put the machine, the architecture machine that you produced into the machine in a search engine, and strategically we said, okay, let's check for the Corbusier. Okay, Machine Habitée. Machine Habitée appeared 3 times. Okay, so very quickly we realized, okay, maybe we are not interested in the Corbusier. Machine à émouvoir. Okay, the machine à émouvoir by Le Corbusier could be interesting 0 times. Okay. So we are on the wrong track. Okay, interesting. This was very interesting. Le Corbusier appears just barely. I mean, Phantom Le Corbusier in this case.
But then I thought, Laurent wrote the introduction, so I looked up Guattari.
Yeah.
14 times in the introduction alone.
Yes.
So we knew what that was
Desiring
about.
machines, because we are fans of Guattari. I mean, really, sometimes it's a torture to read the Anti-Oedipus, but no, it is a torture. Okay? Thousand Plateaus is much easier because you can surf through it.
But I think the machine is wrong, actually.
Desiring machines. Desiring machine appeared 20 times in total.
But that's only seven. But it's only 7 because everything was double. In the end.
No. So I divide by 2 already. Divide by 2.
That's when we figured out it
We
was
figured it
double.
out.
Yeah,
Okay, so then we thought, 20 times Guattari. Who could beat that? So we thought, okay, Foucault, apparatus 75 times. So we got very excited. Okay, so there is a tendency, there is a more Foucaultian kind of tendency to understand, the dispositif,
And then I said, okay, let's go back in time a little bit. What about Mumford?
Okay. Mumford, Maker Machines, because we love Mumford. Mumford, 30 times. Maker Machines. But it's the GTA. So, Gideon, 75 times. So definitely Gideon wins over Louis Mumford. We were happy. We were really happy. Against Le Corbusier, Guattari, Foucault, 75 times. Gideon wins over Mumford.
And then I thought, okay, but I'll also look at pictures. And
The
they were
pictures
very
are good.
beautiful.
The pictures are really good.
They're beautiful, so we were happy.
This is a Gideon strategy, where you have good images, and it was really a pleasure to be taken on a tour of the archives of the GTA. I mean, really a pleasure, because finally you see what you see a little bit of what is in the archives, and that's a great pleasure. And there you realize that there are various ways of, particularly through the captions of the images, because this is, we had to speed up, so we didn't read all the text. We pretend to have read the text, but through the images it became clear that there are 3 ways you attack the subject matter. One is, the deployment of machines in the production of architecture, so the Frei Otto machines and these beautiful machines that are in the GTA, these gigantic machines, to make roofs. So the use of machines to produce architecture, and therefore we thought that computers might be the next step, but you said no. Then obviously the machines that are within the buildings to make it work, and where the building really becomes a machine, and a performative instrument, and then third, the kind of theoretical model of the machine applied to architecture, let's say in analogy, the building in analogy to a machine or as a metaphor for a machine. So this became very, very clear. But then the seven steps in the intro are also very helpful, because it gives you a very speedy reading of history, okay, where you in 7 steps you rush through history, starting with Vitruvius and ending with Sloterdijk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this gives you a kind of epistemology of how the machine was thought in architecture. I thought this was fantastic. This was speed reading.
Yeah, you put the time machine on fast mode.
But
So
then
you
also,
know what? I was going to say, we really look forward to reading it now.
So somehow there is nothing to add to that. I think it was a short presentation, a short comment, and
it's a great. No, I tell you something. Let's get serious about it, because for years, for many years, we have tried to get a publication at the GTA, a journal, okay, and it has been politically sabotaged. From various fractions that didn't want to have a magazine at the GTA. Okay? And so I'm very proud that with the 50th anniversary, finally, finally, we have the GTA Papers. And it's a great title because nobody says GTA in the US. So it's GTA Papers, okay, which takes you already in a kind of interesting Babylonian twist of, shifting from German to English, because you are at the ETH and not at the ETH.
In English, yes.
In English.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't add anything.
Okay, great. Read it, please read it.
Thank you for listening. For further information on the bookshop and upcoming events, please check out our website, neverstopreading.com.